Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Lunch and Learn here with Action Coaching Birmingham. It's great to have you with us. It's also great to welcome Tosin Ajayi from Tosin Video Production. Good afternoon, Tosin. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good afternoon.
Good. It's great to have you with us. And for those who may be listening for the first time, every Monday and Wednesday for about 45 minutes, we go live either to look at educational aspects and what we can learn from each other in our business, or to talk to local business owners about their journey, not just in the last 12 months, but before that as well. And I'm great that we've got Tosin, and grateful we've got Tosin with us today. We're going to talk, I guess, a combination of video and how that can help our business, but most importantly, you know, what Tosin has done to pivot his business in the last 12 months as well. Before we get into that, if this is your first time with us, very much, it's very good to have you here. Welcome to join us. And you may well be listening to us on Facebook or on LinkedIn or on video on YouTube. Any of those platforms, please do ask any questions, put any comments. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know where you're listening to us from. If you've been with us before, please do give us a like or share this stream. It'd be great to engage and engage with as many people as we can across the Birmingham area and further afield. Tosin, I've waffled on enough. It'd be great just to hear a bit more about you and your business.
Yes. So my business is Tosin Video Production, making online video content for small businesses. And what about me do you need to know? Born in the UK, grew up in Nigeria, which is where my love for film started, because I would say that film was the first thing I ever understood, that I ever properly understood in life, because I would sit down, watch TV, and I would just be like, yeah, I get this. I understand this. This makes sense to me. Leading my mum to say the stereotypical mum thing of, if you spend half as much energy on your books as you did on TV, you would be a straight A student. Which I would have to reply, what?
We've all had that at times, haven't we, Tosin, I think?
I can imagine. I'm looking forward to saying that line myself to my daughter when she gets to that age.
I've already used it with mine.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to just sort of like history repeating itself.
Yeah, so the circle of life, hey, it's you know, I can hear my own parents talking to me, and as I say it to my children.
Yeah. And so it got to that point where, to my answer to my mom was like, I don't have to spend much energy on this. I just understand this stuff. I just get it. But growing up in the 80s in Nigeria, filmmaking equipment was hard to come by. So it wasn't until I was 25, at that time I was in America after being in the UK, that I could afford a computer that could handle video editing. And I started playing around. Just because for me, it was just like a hobby. It was the combination of a lifelong dream of, I want to be able to do stuff that I could see on TV. And after a couple of years of playing around with that, somebody says, we want to make a karate demonstration video. We'll pay you. And I'm like, you could get paid? Because for me, it was just a hobby. It was just playing around. Then YouTube happened. And after a couple of years of people thinking that YouTube was all about cats and jokes and all that, they realized this is a massive, massive marketing tool. And I think the world changed. I went back to university. I did one degree in chemical engineering. That was my first undergrad degree. I went back and did a second degree in science media production, which is all about making documentaries and radio shows about science topics. So which is something that I find I still use today in the business. Do
you tend to specialize in scientific companies that you're working with? Is there any link there at all, Tosin, or?
I've worked with scientific companies. I've worked with PhD and research groups before, but that isn't something that essentially there's a lot of transferable skills. The biggest one that I find, because nowadays I work primarily with small businesses, the biggest one that I found is that when you speak to a scientist, and they've been doing this research and they've been doing it for like 10 years or something like that, and you try and ask them to explain what they do, and scientists will start up there. They will start up there. So Steve, I can't see my video. I'm not sure whether that's what's being broadcast or.
I can see your hand. I can see where it is. Okay, as we were saying just before we started, you have one.
You can see me as well.
I can see you as well. Yeah.
Okay, cool. As long as people who are watching can see me, that's the way they. So scientists tend to start all the way up there, and they tend to start up, and that's when they're trying to explain what it is they do. Like for instance, maybe one of the times I was interviewing a scientist, and I was like, "So tell me what it is about you do." He's like, "Well, what we do is we look at single cell science, and that's like all the way up there. The average person on the street is down there and doesn't understand what the heck the scientist just said." And a lot of what you have to do is you have to ask questions and break it down and break it down and break it down and break it down until they say something that the people they're trying to communicate to can understand. And that's something that I find when it comes to small businesses. Small businesses, they work in it and they say, okay, what are you trying to do in your business? And they will talk about something and it will probably be jargon filled and all the way up there. And the customers are down here. And so you might have the exact thing that your customer needs, but the customer doesn't know it. So a lot of the times when I'm working with them, it's about asking questions to break it down and break it down and break it down and break it down until they're saying something that is still true, but is actually understandable to the customer. So I think that is the biggest transferable thing that I have found between the training I did in science media production and what I do now working with small businesses with their video marketing.
It's a real insight, Tosin. I mean, I never thought of it that way, but yes, we hear we've all over the last 12 months got used to the Downing Street press conferences, haven't we?
Oh, yes.
It's a great example where they're trying to translate things like the R number and all the stats behind COVID and the pandemic into language that you and I can understand as we tune in, or we used to tune in at 5 o'clock most days. Great. I think that's the best example I can think of is how the importance of talking the language of the viewer or the listener,
yes,
rather than the language of the business or the perhaps the professionals are using behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Tosin, so you finished your second degree. Obviously, you loved education by the sounds of it, to go back and do a second one. But when you got to that point, what was it you were looking to achieve? Did you start your business straight away? Did you go and work for somebody else, or?
Well, before I went to do the second degree, I was actually working with the church. And I was working with the church. I loved the job. Oh, and by the way, just for anybody who's watching, I know my video would be glitching a little bit, and that's because my regular computer had to go off on an MOT. And I know it might be a bit bad if a video guy has glitching video, but I'm actually quite impressed. If you look on LinkedIn, you will see the situation I came up with, the solution I came up with, and I'm really, really impressed. It's quite a technically interesting situation, even though it might be totally boring to you. But sorry.
You've borrowed the video that the video camera they used in Back to the Future. Is that right, from 1985?
Not far off. It is not far off. I mean, honestly, when you see the video of this, I pretty much have an old camcorder that my dad used to use on holidays, which I have figured out how to connect to my screen. That's what I'm looking at right now. I figured out how to connect it to my screen. I have hooked it up to my computer, so it actually works as a webcam. And as a last minute sort of like, oh, wow, I'm going to get this thing going, because obviously everything's on Zoom now, and I need to Zoom. I'm actually pretty impressed with it. The only thing is that I just need to figure out the glitch. And once I figure out the glitch out, it will be great. But I'm quite happy with it.
I really appreciate, we all have technological challenges at times, Tosin. I'm grateful that you've carried on to join us this lunchtime rather than the alternative. So don't worry. What I'd love to do is actually see your technological solution, the setup you've got. So perhaps send me an image and we can post that along with this video so people can see what you did at the other end.
I'll be posting the video of the of it on LinkedIn pretty much after this.
Well,
this is how I set up for my Zoom meetings now.
Nothing is too much of a challenge for you, Tosin, I'm sure, when it comes to videos and technology.
Well, to be honest with you, I do like the problem-solving aspect of it. So I feel like a rush and a real endorphin rush. But anyway, to get back to your question.
You were back at the church, yes. How the church got to the video, I'm not quite sure. But let's carry on with the church.
Okay, cool. So I was working for a church. I was working with university students, and I thought it was the best job in the world. And obviously, I still had this. And from there, I went to do the course, because the course was something I was like, this is something in me. This is something that I've wanted since I was a kid. I've wanted to be able to do this. I've wanted to be able to make films, essentially. And so I went, while I was still working at the church, I did the course while I was still working. And when I finished, I went back to work with the church, even though in the back of my head, my thought was, at one point, I am going to leave. I'm going to leave and I'm going to do something more creative, because this creative thing within me is not going to go away. It's not going to shut up. and so it was a real sort of like, when you start getting dissatisfied with where you are, as good as it is, you start getting dissatisfied with that and you think, no, there's something more. There's something more for me. And so I was thinking that, but every year would come around and I would be like, well, this is a really good job. I don't want to leave it yet. And it would have been a case of going to work as a freelancer for independent television companies. And I was still kind of trying to figure out a way of maybe I could have 1 foot there and 1 foot here and work the whole thing out. But then I got engaged. I got engaged. My wife is a doctor. And in the run-up to our wedding, she received a letter that from the NHS that told her where her first placement was going to be. I'm not sure if you know much about the NHS and doctors and the way things work, but in the first 10 years of life, of their professional life, doctors have very limited choice over where they end up. So they can say, I know somebody who said, I want to work in London, ended up in Scotland. And so in the run up to our wedding, we'd applied to stay in London, and we got a letter that said, "Congratulations, your first job shall be on the Isle of Wight." To which I was like, "Well, we're getting married. I'm coming. Whatever happens, I'm coming." So we moved to the Isle of Wight, and after about 6 months of trying to transition out of the job, I just realized it's not going to work. I'm going to have to leave. And that was the point where I was like, I guess I'm setting up that business that I've always been thinking about, but maybe I've been a bit too scared to do. So we moved to the Isle of Wight at the beginning of 2014. And that's when I set up the business. And that's when I started going out and going, right, freelance video producer. How do you run a business? How do you make this work? Because I know what I can do, but that what I got to realize is like the whole talking there and that there is that it's a whole other thing, making people realize that you might be what they're looking for.
Yeah, I guess yes, it's almost like a translation service that you're undertaking, isn't it?
It is, yes.
So you transferred over to the Isle of Wight with your new wife.
Yep.
And you set up. Was it Toes In Video Production that you set up then? Was that when you started?
That was when I set up. That's when I set up the business that I have now. Yes.
Yeah. So how long ago was that then? How many years?
That was in 2014, January 2014.
2014.
We had another name.
Yeah. So 7 years or so you've been running the current business in some shape or form. So when you set it up in 2014, what was the vision? You know, if I just said to you in 2014, Toes In, tell me what your business looks like in 2025. What were you looking for then, and has that changed?
Making money was probably about the only I think at the beginning the vision was just the main thing was, okay, I want to do something which I can make money, because I could see the way the world was going. And for me, I was like, everybody's going to need video. If you're going to be in business, you're going to need video to get your message across. It's going to be this big, massive thing. So I could see that. To begin with, I thought because obviously I was living on the Isle of Wight, and from everything I'd heard, the Isle of Wight is a destination, and there were a whole bunch of people who go to the Isle of Wight to have weddings. I remember there was some statistics about on the Isle of Wight, the number of weddings that happen every year was in the thousands. And wow. you think about, there's only 52 weeks in a year. That's a lot of weddings happening each weekend. So I was thinking wedding videos, that's going to be the first point of contact where people are going to be like, you don't have to explain much to them why they need a video. They'll just be like, yeah, we need a video, come do it. And I found out that that wasn't quite true, because by the time with weddings, by the time people think about a video is like the last thing they think about, because obviously they've got to think, okay, get the venue, get the dress, get the two people who are going to get married to actually agree to going through this thing, get the food, get the catering, get all that kind of stuff. Get a photographer. Then at the end, what tends to happen is, oh, should we film it? Oh yeah, that might be a good idea. And they'll think about filming it. And usually by that time, they have no money left. So they want you to hang out with them for about 10 hours. This was my experience anyway. I know some people have been quite successful with it, but this was my experience. They want you to hang out with them for about 10 hours and spend probably another 10 hours editing on the footage that you've gotten from the wedding. And they want to pay you £200. And I'm like, so that's 20 hours part of my time. It's not viable as a business model. So I found that it was more the business side of things, which I thought would come to pass, which is where I thought, because businesses are used to the idea of you pay for something. If you want something, you pay for it. You pay for something, you get it. And I think businesses are a lot more open to that than maybe a young couple who are just getting married and are trying to figure out how they're actually going to pay for their lives. So I found that in businesses, there was a lot less haggling about how much they were going to pay you. It was either that was the price or that wasn't the price. So I think within the first year, it switched where I was thinking, weddings. Then I thought, actually, no, businesses, that's a better place. And then even there, because I went along, when you talk about a vision to begin with, the first couple of years was just let's figure out how I can use these skills to make money. That was about it. Let's just figure out who will pay me for these skills that I have. that was about it.
Keeping your head above water to begin with.
Sorry, what?
It's about keeping your head above water in those early days.
Yeah, that's really what it was. And it's what it was like for a long time. Because people would come up to me, even when I got like, a fish to bite, so to say, or to nibble, they usually come up to me and they would say things like, oh, we want to do a 1-minute video. How much is that going to cost? And that's a how long is a piece of string question. I think I've told you this before. And it's because you think, okay, you want to do a 1-minute video. Okay, how long is okay, we know it's going to be a minute long, but how many locations? How many people are going to be in there? Do I have to travel to get to the position? There's all these questions that come into how much it's going to cost to make a 1-minute video. But by the time you say that to your average small business owner, they've legged it, because they're thinking, oh, you have confirmed all of my suspicions. This is going to bankrupt me. Don't want to have anything to do with you. And they've just legged it. So it took me about, I think I spent the first 2 years of my business learning how to speak small business and realizing that small business owners, what they care about a lot is the bottom line. So when they come up and they say, I want to do a 1-minute video, what they want to hear is a number that is not going to freak them out. So I got to the point where I developed packages. And with the packages, because what I gave, the way someone put it to me recently is, I provide a service, but people want to buy a product. And when you have a business that's a service, it's really, really hard to sort of make it into a product. It just this is what you buy. Because technically speaking, what you're buying is my time. But that's not, how much is your time worth? I mean, so I had to figure a way of packaging it so that now when people tell me I want to do a 1-minute video, I can tell them, well, it starts from £200. They hear £200. For most businesses, that's not that big a number. Then they can sit down and we can actually have a discussion. And then from that discussion, we can figure out exactly what it is they want. And then figure out a way of turning this service into a product that they can pay me for. So I think the things that have changed have been that I have become a lot better at speaking small business, and I've become a lot better at pointing out what the value of my business is to a small business owner. And so that now I've become a lot more confident in it as well. Because before I kind of knew, but if somebody kind of, you'd have the problem that if somebody sort of doubted what you said, you start trying to figure, oh, well, okay, let's knock some money off or something like that, just to try and get the job.
Yeah. It sounds like over the last 5 or 6 years, Tosin, you've really got a handle on a much better idea of who your key market is.
Yes.
Who your key client is, rather than sort of, trying to appeal to the masses.
Yeah.
You've got a really good idea of, where you can add value. And to what kind of clients. But just before we go on to the last year in particular, I just want to ask, if you were to go back, to those early days on the Isle of Wight, setting up your business, and to give some advice or do something different, what advice would you give to the Tosin of 2014? Or any other young entrepreneur who's just perhaps leaving Birmingham City University, or sort of Birmingham University, and they've just done their degree in video production, or What advice would you give them?
That is a good question. I think that the biggest thing that would probably have helped me back then would have been to have more conviction or have more belief in my original idea. To have more belief that, look, this thing actually makes sense. That this is, and almost, and spend some time narrowing down why it makes sense and who you would give it to. Because I guess we're talking about kind of doing a business plan, which I didn't do. I didn't do back then. And even if I think about myself in 2014, even if I think about myself now, I still don't like those words, business plan. Even though it's I know it's my natural bent, I just don't like it. It's kind of like it says to me sitting down and doing something that is just going to bore the pants off me. Even though at the same time as I'm saying that, and I know that is my instinctual reaction to when I hear those words, I know it's a very good idea. but my instinctual reaction is like, no, it's kryptonite.
I don't think you're unique in that, Tosin. Say 90%, 95% even of the business owners I talk to have got great ideas and great plans, but getting it into action in terms of writing it down and articulating it in written form is so hard. But you're saying you'd be more, it's the strength of your convictions and perhaps get that plan in place, get it written down, formulated. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because I think most businesses it's about the person who runs the business has a conviction or has a skill that they believe people need. And the place where business happens is where your conviction or your skills meet somebody's need. Or not even just meet somebody's need, meets the point where they realize that you fulfill their need. Because what you do could fulfill their need, but if they don't realize it, you're in exactly the same point, which is you have nothing. So and I think it's, if I was going to speak to myself in 2014, I would say do more work to make sure that people realize that you meet their need. Because I would go to networking meetings, and a lot of things I would say, hi, my name is Tosin, I make videos. And that was my catchphrase. And people knew me for saying, I make videos. And the more I went on, the more I thought, the answer to that is, yes, so what? You make videos, so what? And you start realizing, hang on a second, if I'm looking at it from a point of view of my potential customer, like a small business owner who is trying to increase their online presence, they could be, like you can see behind me, this is the video you can see behind me was from a construction company, one of my clients on the Isle of Wight, weirdly enough. And it's, and for them, it's kind of like, yeah, he makes videos, so what? But then when if I'd gone back and instead of saying I make videos, if I told 2014 Tosin, when you go to a networking meeting, don't say I make videos, say I increase your online presence, or I make more people pay attention to you on Facebook. Then people start going, oh, okay, yeah, I've heard of this Facebook thing. I want to use it. How can you help me? Then that would have gotten me a lot more attention, and it got me a lot more discussions, which could have probably helped the business back then. So it's about figuring out, I know there's all sort of businessy jargon about it. You might pick up that I don't particularly like most of these, but it's like, people talk about your pain points.
Yes.
Sure enough, it might be business jargon, but the truth is that there's truth behind it, which is why it exists. You've got to figure out what it is you will be doing, what problem it is you'll be solving for the potential clients. And when I was walking around telling people I make videos, I wasn't telling them anything about what problem they have that I would be solving. I was just telling them what I do, which from a business perspective doesn't really do anything. It doesn't help me anyway. So I think what I'd rather have gone is I'd rather have said, I help people pay attention to you through video. And then every business wants that. Every business wants people to pay attention to them, because if people don't pay attention to you, you don't get any sales, you don't make any money. So that's what I've said.
Yeah, I guess it goes back to what you're saying earlier on about, speaking the right language and focusing on the outcome. What is the impact or the outcome of what you're offering, not just what is the process of doing it. So, really important to have that, real understanding of a plan and have conviction from what you're saying, but also understand the language you're using and make sure you're talking the language of your potential customer. Just bringing you a bit more up to date then, Tosin, to this time last year almost.
Yes.
When we were all told by our government to lock ourselves in our houses and not to go anywhere apart from the supermarket. And if you go there, go on your own. And I think even at that time, none of us quite thought it was going to be 12 months or more before we could be released again.
Yeah.
We've all done our time, dare I say, but it's all for the right reasons, and hopefully we're on the right path now in terms of the vaccine and the pandemic. But this time last year, what were you thinking about your business? Where was your business just before the pandemic, and what happened as we went into lockdown?
Yeah. I'll say one thing of that is, like, nobody thought it would last for 12 months or more, apart from the people who had watched the film Contagion.
Yes, I've seen it. Yes,
because the university I went to was a science university, and
of course.
I remember people went to, and so when they watched Contagion, while most people were like going, oh my word, oh, a thriller, most people were going, yeah, it would take around about that time to create a vaccine, and so there are a lot of people who looked at that. So I think there were a lot of people I went to university with who probably who probably thought is like, yeah, we're gonna be locked down. I mean, I know for me, once it became clear how important this thing was, I thought it would be about 18 months. I thought it would be about. I thought it would be about 18 months before we even got a vaccine. So we're ahead of my schedule. Let me put it that way. So, but sorry. Okay, now getting back to your original question, where was the business just before the?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I guess we are fortunate that the vaccine, they've done such great work in developing that, haven't they? But I still think it's going to be, your 18 months isn't far off, because I think it's going to be another 6 months or so before we start returning to.
Yeah.
Or not returning to a norm, but sort of getting used to the new norm.
Yeah.
So in terms of all of that time, we are talking 18 months, aren't we?
Yeah, we're talking about 18 months. That's I think before we can have some semblance of what we used to have. But so just before lockdown happened, the business was in a place where I felt I had that whole process of fine tuning the message. I felt we have got this. We have got this. It was right. I had about 3 or 4 projects that were about to kick off, and they were all right. There were testimonial videos. There was going to be a construction video. There was something I was going to do with the leisure center. And I felt this is it. I was actually going to the point where I felt, oh, finally, if you understand what I mean by this, finally, this feels like a job, so to say, because it was like, finally, I've gone to that point where, I can almost guarantee that money is coming in every month, and a certain amount of money, which was good. And that's where it was. And because of the nature of my business, because generally speaking, when it's making videos, it's going out there, filming with people. So it's go out there, you film with people, you come back, you edit it in a dark room, you send them the final stuff online. It meant that even before we officially locked down, there were a couple of jobs that got canceled because people were not feeling happy. They were not feeling comfortable meeting up. So they were like, no, I'm shielding, I'm at home. I don't want to film. I don't want to meet up with you to do the filming. So that happened. Then I myself went down for about a week with something that I still don't know what it was, but there was fever, there was lying in bed, so there was no cough. So it might have been COVID. I don't know, because at that time we hadn't even started testing. There was no test to figure out whether they had it or not. So I was down for about a week when the week where lockdown was announced. And my first thought was, well, that's Cuppa's half my business, because I can't go out and film with people. So the going out and filming with people, that's not going to happen anymore. So, but for the week while I was lying down with something, with whatever affliction I had, I was thinking, okay, so what's this going to mean? How is this going to go forward? And I figured out that while it's taken out half of my business, which is the meeting up with people and filming with them, the other half of my business, which is editing the videos, is still intact, because, as I say, that is usually me in a dark room. It's the very, very model of self-isolation. It's like, I'm not going to be near anybody to do the editing part of it. So, and I had already been doing a presentation about teaching people how to film a good business video on their phone. So I just thought, why don't I just turn that? And it's one of these things, like an idea that I've been percolating in the back of my head for a while. And it was, why don't I just make a series of videos to teach people how to film a good business video on the phone?
Yes, yeah.
Because if they do that, they can still send it to me. I can edit it and send it back to them. And then that way, because in my head, I was thinking, however long this thing lasts, and as I said in my head, once we realized it was a viral pandemic, I was thinking 18 months, people are going to need to remain visible. Yeah. They're going to need to remain visible, like what you guys are doing now. It's about remaining visible. It's about people realizing that, you know what, we are still here. There's still stuff that can be done. There's still a way forward, even though it's not what we were used to. There's still a way forward. And
did you find there was an upturn in demand for your services at the beginning of lockdown, or did it take sort of 3 or 4 months for people to really to think about and turn to alternative marketing strategies?
It took a while, because from what I found is that at the beginning of lockdown, a lot of people, they just kind of shut everything down. I'm sure you found this as well. One of the first things people thought is, once lockdown happened, and that first month, I think the first month was a weird thing where week 1 was widespread panic. Week 1 was, oh my God, I have no business anymore. This has ruined my life.
And I think we've been through so much over the last 12 months people, certainly speak for myself, almost find it hard to remember what it was actually like this time last year. I mean, remember the some of the pinnacle points, but actually what it was like day to day, it's hard to go back that long because so much else happened since.
Yeah, well, and I think for me, I agree with you that it is hard for people to remember that. And I think for me, the thing that keeps it fresh is the fact that in week 1 of lockdown, pretty much, I took over as on the leadership team of my local networking group of BNI, which I know you're a member of a BNI group as well.
I am, yes, and I took over mine at the same time as well.
Yeah, and so I think for us, because I was in the vice president's role, which means that you're supposed to be like, you pretty much liaise with a lot of the members. And I remember that place. I remember that time vividly. I remember it vividly because of that, you had about 30 people on a Zoom call coming in, and it was supposed to be 30, but I think the first time we probably had only about 20 because it was sort of widespread panic, and there were about 10 people who thought there's no point doing this. What the heck are we doing? Why are we networking? There's no business anyway.
We were back in the hotel eating breakfast soon, weren't we? It was that sort of attitude.
Yeah, and there were some people who were like, I'm just going to lie down here until it all blows over. And so there was a lot of contacting people saying, I don't think this is going to blow over, or even if it's going to blow over soon, in the meantime, let's not miss out. Let's figure out what happens. And so there was all this, just sort of like panic and going on, and people were cutting off their budgets. People were saying no more marketing, anything like that. And it wasn't probably until about a month of being a month of lockdown that people started realizing, you know what, this thing isn't going away anytime soon. They realized it's not going anywhere anytime soon. If I'm going to wait for it to all blow over, I will have no business at the end of this. So might as well. And so we started seeing more people coming back to the networking meeting and just sort of saying, all right, let's see, what is it that we can do? What is it that we can achieve in this time? And then that's when it started building up again and building up again. It meant, and I think because with what I do, it's with what I do, a lot of people have phones in their pockets, so they feel that they can do it themselves.
Yes. Yeah.
So there wasn't an upturn in demand so much because people started doing it themselves. And I'm happy for people to do it themselves, because when they do it themselves, they realize how difficult it is. And that means that there's a bigger chance that they'll actually come hire me. So it took a while. I think probably about 3 months before people started going, you know what? Yeah, we need to do this. And a lot of my offerings became all around people filming stuff, sending them to me, then I can edit it. So I had the videos that I did to teach people how to make a good business video on their phone. And I also started doing a workshop, where the workshop is they'll come on online with me on a Zoom, come onto a Zoom call with me for an hour. And in that hour, we'll take your phone and we'll find a place where you can film, where it has good lighting, you can get your sound right, all that. And I'll send you a clamp so you can actually hold your phone steady. And by the time the hour finishes, you have a good position to go and make some good content. Now, the whole idea is that you still send it to me and I edit it to make it slick and make it presentable before it goes out to the wide world. But those are the kind of offerings that I came up with.
So you really had to think about, the services you're offering before. Obviously, you can go out and about as much. You can access people, places in the way that you were doing before. So you really had to think hard about what you're offering and how you could change that and how you could, you were saying, a product range or a service range that really met the needs of people at that time. So are they things that you had thought of before with sort of really, it was done out of necessity and survival? And are those services ones that you will continue to offer as restrictions ease?
I already had some of this happening because I had some clients who would film themselves, send stuff to me, and then I would edit it together. So I already had that going. And so going back to the whole working with the church thing, there's this story in the Bible about Moses speaking to God, and Moses saying, "Oh, I'm useless. I can't talk. I can't do anything. I have nothing to offer." And God telling him, "Look, what's that in your hand?" And essentially saying, what do you have in your hand? And it's a case of what you already have is what you're going to use. What you already have is helpful for what you're trying to achieve. And I think there was a bit of that going on, which is, it's a case of looking at everything that was going on in the world and going, hang on, what do I actually have in my hand? What have I got here with me? It's like, what skills do I have? And these are the skills, this is the situation. The situation has changed, my skills haven't. And it's only if there's something that blocks my skills from being useful in the situation. And the editing is really, really useful.
Yes.
So it's just about figuring out, okay, if the editing is useful in a situation, how do I connect that to the need that is out there? And it is to ask. So I think that's what happened at the beginning, and then realizing that, look, I already do this with some people. I just need to make this open to more people and help other people. So because the problem with it is the filming aspect. Some people are not comfortable with the filming aspect, or some things that people film themselves that do not come out looking well because they've made some basic mistakes, like not gotten a microphone or filmed themselves in front of some bay windows or something like that. So I was like, if I just help people correct those mistakes, they can come up with good footage that will help their business, and then I can do the editing. And it's something I am going to offer going forward, because I think because my number one value as a business is to help other people, to help businesses. And when I think about other businesses, it is the most economical thing for them to film, if they're going to do regular monthly video content, to film themselves and send it to someone like me, and I'll edit it. That's the most economical way, because it gets more expensive if I have to come and do the filming, and it gets less time efficient if they try and do the editing. So if you film yourself, because that's pretty easy, you can do that as and when, send it to me, I'll edit it. And so that's something I want to keep going forward, only because I see that being it totally frees up my time to do more editing. It frees up my time to be more helpful to more businesses. And it also helps the businesses as well to create
more cost efficient, isn't it? Absolutely.
More regularly.
Yeah. I love what you're saying about, lockdown really forced you and forced many others to really look, you've used a biblical example there of look at what's in your hands, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What can we do? What can we do going forwards? And I remember speaking to many business owners over the last couple of years before lockdown, and asking them to, can we have a conversation about, your business or how we can work together? And the answer predominantly was, I'm too busy, I haven't got time. Lockdown has really forced people to take a step back, hasn't it? And think, what am I doing? What are my goals? What is my destination? What's my vision?
Yeah.
Starting with the end in mind, and what can I do? What skills don't I have? What skills do I need to acquire? And what can I do with what I've got in my hand right now?
Yeah.
So in your business, Tosin, did you, in terms of, we've talked a bit about the services and the products and how you've pivoted that. In terms of how you run the business, is there anything you're doing differently that you think actually, for example, most of us are doing meetings and conducting business online, offering services in different ways. In terms of how you're doing your business, delivering your business, are you going to change anything, or is there anything you're going to stick with, or are you going to go back out and meet the people?
This whole lockdown period has made me, it's made me realize the things I didn't like about the way business was being done. One of the big things was driving. I really started realizing that I despised driving up and down, well, mostly the West Midlands, but I despised driving for 40 minutes to get to a meeting that lasted half an hour for business I was never going to get. So it's made me, if there's something I want to keep going forward, I want to do a lot less driving. I want to do a lot less driving, and I want to be like, if I'm leaving my house, it's because I'm getting paid. Quite frankly, if I'm leaving my house, it's because, if I'm coming to meet you, it's because we have already decided, we've hashed this thing out, we've met up online, we've spoken about it, and we know that there's definitely a point in going forward with this thing. You have agreed to a proposal, and then I'm leaving the house, and that's it. I'm getting paid. That's why I'm coming to meet you. So that's something I want to keep going forward.
And do you think, linked to that, there's something about valuing time differently now?
Yes.
As a business owner, yeah.
I definitely think so. And depending on your bent, I think valuing time, and there's an aspect of valuing the environment. And because I feel like with a lot of things, there's just this, it becomes a snowball. This is the way we do things. We just move forward. You want to do business with somebody in London? How do you have to do it? You have to jump on the train. You have to get down there. You have to have that 1 hour meeting. You've got to press the flesh and all that. And that just becomes this all-encompassing thing. And it takes something to stop everything happening, like COVID did, to stop everything happening, to make you go, hang on a second, why were we doing that? Or hang on a second, why do we do things this way? It might not make the most sense. There might be a better way. And I think that, so I agree with you, valuing the time. People think about how much time they spend on the road and being at home with family, and they're realizing maybe that's why I actually want more than that. During the lockdown, I became a dad. And I know with me,
congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And I know all of a sudden I started thinking, you know what? Early mornings, I don't want to start early mornings. I want to start work later in the day, because then I can be there for, like, when she wakes up and doing stuff and changing the first nappy of the day. And these are now my big things in life, which did not exist 12 months ago.
Yeah.
And I think valuing our time and also valuing our actions, as to say, what we were doing, was that helpful or harmful? Whether it was for our mental health, is it helpful to drive all over the place and all that and just run around and constantly be on the go? Or is there another bit of, is it helpful to us, or is it harmful? Because, for instance, I'll tell you a tiny thing that has changed, because obviously in this week, you're allowed to do outdoor sports again. And I'm a tennis player. I try and play 3 times a week, or when we're allowed to. And this was the first week of getting back. And the tennis club, I was thinking, do I really need to drive there? No, I don't think I need to drive there, because I've evaluated my whole driving thing during this. Yeah. I was like, no, I'm going to get on the bike, because sure enough, because usually I would say, oh, I need to drive because my tennis bag is quite big and I've got this. But I was even like, wait, do I need everything in my tennis bag? I need a racket and I need some balls. That's about it. I don't need to carry a whole massive tennis bag. I can carry a smaller bag, get on my bike, cycle there. And it's things like that I think it's just made you evaluate a lot of different things and say, I know this is the way we've always done it, because it's the way we've usually done it, but is that actually the best way of doing it? And I think that's something I'm going to carry going forward.
I think just on what you're saying about, working in a different way and evaluating the driving, my other thought that's going through my mind as you're saying that, Tosin, is we've got to make sure we've all become more efficient by using Zoom, other platforms online. We're not spending time traveling here, there, and everywhere. Equally, from a mental health and also from an efficiency point of view, I love the idea you're getting out to play tennis 3 times a week. It's important that we actually get away from our screens. Yeah. And we don't put ourselves under that much pressure that we are, just working non-stop, because having the driving around, having the people in the office with us gave us that natural break in the day.
Yeah,
that natural break of an activity. So we just need to make sure. I'm not preaching to you here, but it's going through my mind from a mental health perspective. We need to get the right balance, don't we?
It brings opportunities, but like with everything in life, it brings its own problems as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tosin, I'm conscious we're coming to the end of the time we've got, but if I was to be sitting here having this conversation with you, Tosin, in 10 years' time, in 2031.
Yep.
Where do you see the business then, and what 3 things are you going to be doing going forwards after lockdown to help you get there?
Where do I see the business then? Well, I see the business being bigger. There's at the moment I'm playing with the idea of whether I will have employees, because at the moment it's just me. Whether I'll have employees or whether I'll just I think I prefer the idea of a group of freelancers who work together as opposed to actually employing somebody, because that's a whole other admin headache that I'm not too sure about. I mean, recently I've just sort of brought on a virtual assistant, which is helping just be more organized and make sure I can spend my time on the things I actually want to do. So I think the first thing was get some help. When you talk about the 3 things I'm going to go for to actually help me get to the point where the business is bigger and known all across the Midlands for helping small business videos get into video marketing. So the first thing was to get some help, which is getting a VA. The second thing was to focus my time more, which is kind of linked, quite frankly. It's focus my time more on the things that I'm good at. The things that I'm not so good at, or the things that make me want to rip my hair out, or whatever hair that's left out, those are the things that I just want to make sure that someone else takes them on board. And the third thing post-lockdown is to be more protective of my time. So I've recently, throughout this period, looked at my calendar and thought, what is the best way of doing this? So with something that's a bit more creative, like it's very easy to get into the sort of like, oh, well, you can't really sort of like, when inspiration hits or something like, even if you're making something as seemingly straightforward as a video for an accountant, there's still that conversation that happens of, it's a creative business, so you got to, but I think taking my time and being a bit more disciplined with it and saying, all right, cool, those days are editing days. That time is ring fenced. That time is protected. Now, those days are networking days. That day is a meeting day. So if I'm going to meet up with anybody from that I've met a networking or potential client or anything like that, we're going to put it on that day. And I think those are the things I'm going to take forward so that it makes sure that I actually get things done. Because if not, I have a tendency to get overwhelmed because of all the busyness. You're like, oh, I'm going to go meet this person. I'm going to go talk to that person. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go edit that video. I'm going to go. And I'm like, no, I need almost sort of like time silos where don't bother me. So much so that I've turned off the notifications of WhatsApp on my phone. So every time a message comes through, I don't get a notification, but I check it like 3 times a day. So it's things like that just to be more protective of my time, I think is what is going to help.
Brilliant. That's brilliant to hear. And what you're saying there is something we talk to many of our clients about all the time. Things like default diary, having set times during the day, every single day, having a clear focus. I love everything you've talked about in terms of where you want the business to be, taking on a VA, and that sort of, to use your phrase, putting the toe in the water, going back to your logo, yes. Putting the toe in the water in terms of, taking on that first employer, outsourcing that bit of work. It's been an absolute delight talking to you today, Tosin, and thank you for persevering with the video. I know you've had some challenges with that this morning as well, so I really appreciate that. Much of what you've talked about, Tosin, for me, just links back very briefly before we go to our 30x program. 30 videos, 15, so half an hour, so 15 hours worth of video. That our clients work through everything from time management to billionaire in the making to business planning, starting with the end in mind and having those clear goals, destinations, lead generation. All that we've talked about with you, Tosin, we've not sort of structured it this way, but it links back to the videos that we're offering here at Action Coach. So if you'd like to find out more, if you're listening to us today, then please do get in touch. And I'd love to share with you a bit more about the 30x program and how it might help your business. It's only £30 a week to take part, and there's no contract. So if you're interested in that, please do get in touch. Equally, if you are out there right now and you're thinking, video, I haven't got any video to promote my business, then absolutely Tosin is the person to get in contact with. I've known Tosin for a while now, and again, part of the same networking organization. I wouldn't recommend somebody that I wasn't confident could deliver. So please do get in contact with Tosin. And not only is he time conscious, but he's also money conscious as well. So he'll make sure you get the best product, the best result for the price that suits you and suits him.
Yeah.
You'll come to that right agreement, a win-win for everybody. So please do, get in contact with Tosin if you'd like to explore how you can promote your business using video. Because after all, it is, I think it was you that said to me, Tosin, it is the most powerful button on the web, isn't it? That play button. People are so intrigued to know what goes on behind that play button. They'll use it every day.
Yeah. It's like it's probably the most clicked thing on any website you go to is the play button. Because people are like, talk to me. Tell me what you have.
And if you're wondering what you can put behind that play button, then do refer back on our YouTube channel to any of the videos we've done with Tosin in the past about how to make the best use of video in your business. Tosin, I look forward to you coming back to us again in the future. I hope we can get a date in the diary after Easter, maybe April, May. That'd be great.
I love it. It's like therapy that I don't have to pay for.
Call it a free coaching session. That's what I do, Tosin. A complimentary coaching session. But no, it's good to reflect, isn't it? And it's also good to think forwards and plan for the future. We haven't got a lunch and learn on Monday. It's a bank holiday, and I hope that everybody listening, including myself and Tosin, will be having a well-earned break, I'm sure, some time, as we were talking earlier on, with the family. So that's really important for all of us. It's a work-life balance. But on Wednesday, we've got Katie Smith joining us, and she started her business during lockdown. She's a full-time mum, a full-time business owner, and she's going to be talking about how she's juggled those two challenges, working from home, setting up a new business from home, and having the children. So it'd be lovely to hear, all about her story with Katie on Wednesday, next Wednesday, the 7th of April. But for now, Tosin, again, a massive thank you. I can't wait to see that image you're going to send to or share on LinkedIn about how you've overcome the video challenge this lunchtime to join us. You said you're going to take me back to those days of the big video camera at high school on my shoulder.
Yes.
A long way away from where we are now with these mobile phones in our hands. But it's been great talking to you. Thank you again. To all our listeners, stay well, stay safe, and we look forward to you catching up with us and us with you next Wednesday the 7th at 12 o'clock. Take care now. Thanks again, Tosin. Bye-bye.